April 5th, 1999.
Hi, my grandchildren, Jessica, Daniela, Ellen, and of course Marissa. And I want to tell you a little bit from my lifetime. I'm now 76 years old, and the main thing I really want to tell you about my young years under Hitler and certain things we went through, me and my family. I was born in Berlin and Hitler came to power in 1933. Of course,
How old were you at that time?
at this time I was already, let's see, from 22 to 33,
You were 11.
11 years. And it became very tough. We got very frightened because we knew Adolf Hitler, is the biggest Jew hater that existed, and he wanted to get rid of all the Jews in Germany.
Do you remember when you first heard about him? Or how?
How I kind of like, it was a normal thing. Very young, I was before in a regular public school. And at 10, I might have heard earlier, the newspapers, talks between my parents, between friends. I was supposed to go to a lyceum. I had very good grades. And after I finished the 4 years public school, I was enrolled in a lyceum. But the lyceum was a statewide German school. So my father decided not to send me to that good lyceum rather than to a Jewish school. So I went to a Jewish middle school that usually stops by age 16. It's not really the higher education where you go directly then into college. But nobody thought this far. It was more important to be in a Jewish surrounding in a Jewish school. There's all the hatred that went on. I had so a gentle friend in our building from our landlord that we played together, a very nice girl, and there were also some very nice Jewish neighbors. They were my playmates. And in the very young ages, we didn't know the difference, Jews and Gentiles. I have to look up something. Yeah, I know.
Was your family religious?
Hmm?
Was your family religious?
My
At that time?
family, my father would go with us to shul Friday night and Saturday morning. My mother was more the cooking type, was home preparing, unless there are high holidays. And then he had to go back to his office because it was payday for the employees and things. So after the shul, he went, the office was opened anyhow. He himself was, Berlin was changed at this time from gas to electric. And people needed a lot of electric appliances. So he specialized to sell to salesmen, vacuum cleaner, refrigerators, electric watches, everything on electric. He could sell, he would sell. And his sales people were mixed, they were Gentile and Jews. And he had no problem so far. But then after, this was 33. So he stayed quite a few years with them, but at one day came the head from the Berliner Elektrizitätscompany and told my father that they cannot work with a Jewish company anymore. It was also that some people that had bought appliances from us and found out it's a Jewish company, maybe by according of the name, Weisberger or whatever, that they decided not to make the payments and not to return the things they had bought. And sometimes my father even had sued them. And there were still at the beginning some fair judges It gave them judgments they have either to learn or to pay. But that eventually all stopped. The Jews had no rights. You didn't sue officially anymore to the law.
Just for some background information, what were your parents' names?
Oh, my parents' name. My father was Josef Weisberger, and my mother was Regina Weisberger, born Scheinman. And my father was born in Poland, but came when he was 3 years old with his parents to Berlin. Never spoke Polish, always spoke German. On the other hand, he did not apply for a German passport or to naturalize or anything. He just didn't feel ashamed that he's from Poland, or his area there is Galician, where the Jews did not feel comfortable to be Galiciana. That was kind of like looking down on them. But my father didn't care, and he never was hiding it, that he came from Poland, because the German Jews felt above the Polish Jews. So there was quite a difference within the Jewish community itself.
Where was your mother from?
My mother was from Ulanov,
Also Poland.
also Galician. And she came with a grandmother, and the grandmother had lost already the husband and quite a few children. There was Tante Sabina, Tante Chazisa, Moshe. Wait a minute, there were more. There were at one time 7 children. One went to South America, one passed away. So, let's say 5. I think I mentioned 4 names. I don't know, doesn't come to me now. Let's see here.
Were you kosher in the house, Mom?
Yes, we were blood kosher. And the only thing, we children were not allowed to drive on Shabbat. We had abonnements to school, a monthly card for the year, whatever, how my father bought it. We could use a subway to school or wherever we went. I belonged to a Habonim that was not just Jewish, but Zionist organization. My father also belonged to the Zionist organization in Berlin and was very well known, and he always was a very good speaker. And when we really had trouble to leave Germany, there were just no openings, nobody wanted to do. So you couldn't get a visa anywhere for money or what, unless you had some connection, somebody was living there, like a brother or sister, they had some rights to bring their relatives.
When was the first time you heard that the family wanted to move out of Germany?
Oh, we were sitting over at the home, I think. I don't know whether it was before Hitler. I mean, there was already a big Nazi party. But once Hitler was in power, we knew we had to get out. Because first people always thought this crazy man cannot stay on in power. They figured that the Germans, the Gentile Germans, will rebel against him. But they didn't. The political situation in Germany was tough. There was a big unemployment rate. And of course, the papers like the Stürmer, it was a typical Nazi magazine. Very well known in Germany all over, and they brought all the hate and all the hate propaganda and everything in the papers. These caricatures from Jews with a long nose, and in every way the Jew was put down, that they are mean, they are not fair, they are anything bad they would write about them.
Back to just background.
Huh?
Just some background information. You also have one sister. Were there any other children?
My family?
Yes.
Oh, my sister Susie and my brother Theodore
Yeah.
became later in Israel Ephraim, the Hebrew name for it. And my sister is alive, thank God, but my brother passed away several years ago. And his family lives in Israel, never wanted to leave Israel. And even when it came to leaving Israel, we personally were very unhappy. Because we loved
We'll
the
get to
country.
Israel yet.
Oh, later.
Going back to before you left Germany.
Before
The kids have always seen on TV or read in the books about some of the incidences, like the Night of Glass,
Oh, the Crystal Night.
Crystal Night. You remember that at all?
Yeah, I remember the Crystal Night. It got tougher from day to day. First of all, stores had to have big signs Jude, so that they knew people will not go in the store for shopping, because photographer would be around taking their pictures and people would go shopping at Jewish stores. So that was one part. The other part, it's a Crystal Night. My father was picked up middle of the night. The Nazis came and just took him out of the house. We didn't know where to and what. The morning my mother went to the police station to find out where he is.
This was before Kristallnacht, right? This was before Kristallnacht.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was before the Crystal Night. And she found out that he was transported to Poland. The Germans tried to get rid of all the Jews they possibly can. Legally, they could take my father and send him back to Poland because he was born in Poland and never applied for German citizenship. He never naturalized. He didn't care one way or another. He didn't feel ashamed to be Polish. And there was no particular reason for it.
So your mother went to look for him. You said they took your father out of the house
Yes, that's
and
right.
sent him to Poland.
Sent him to Poland. The first transport of trade with Jews to Poland went through. Then the Polish found out that the Germans want to send all the Polish Jews back. They closed the border, and people stayed in a no man's land. That was a short strip of land between Germany and Poland. But my father went directly to Krakow. And through somebody with an address from a relative, somebody took him in. The Jewish people in Krakow were supporting the refugees that were sent in with nothing, just the clothes on their back. So he was by some family, I don't know the details who that was. And we tried to get a certificate. The only country there where we could run for was Palestine. That was then British mandate.
Did your father get back to you after
No,
leaving
that
for
is
Poland?
connected with it. He couldn't come home unless he could prove that in 3 days he would leave Germany. He could just pass through Germany and leave Germany. So since my father was a big Zionist and people knew him in Berlin, and he had some connections, it was very hard to get in those days a certificate to Israel, because the Arabs were fighting the Jews. They didn't want more fights in the country. It was a British mandate. So they lowered, there was even a quota to migrate to Palestine. You couldn't just go because you're a Jew. So we were very lucky. We got the visa for Palestine. And we left everything behind. My father came in for 3 days. The apartment stayed, the business stayed. We just went with a suitcase, or a few suitcases.
And in between then was Kristallnacht.
The Kristallnacht
He came home. He stayed a
My father
night.
came after the Kristallnacht.
He came home after Kristallnacht?
No, wait a
No,
minute,
because you
wait
said
a
you
minute.
looked out the windows, and he would tell you not to look out the window.
No, this was before the Crystal Night. The Nazis were driving through the Jewish center and were shooting up into the windows. And we kids just ducked down. The parents told us lay flat into corners from the apartment and lay flat on the floor. So it's frightening. You hear the shooting and you know what's going on. We kids were curious. We wanted to look out the window. So that would be more dangerous. So the only way was to move in as much as you could into the apartment and hide in corners.
You also told me to school that you used to wear a Jewish star to school to show that you were proud.
All these years, I mean, I look Jewish anyhow. And I kind of like had a certain proudness within me, and with all the Nazis around, I would go to school. I mean, I went to a Jewish school, but I had to take a train to school. And I mean, in summertime, you're not always closed up with a coat and a scarf or anything. But I remember very strongly about it. I was very proud to wear my Jewish star, and the eyes from people popped out looking at that little Jewish girl with the chutzpah to walk around with a Jewish star. And
do you remember having benches in parks that said you?
Oh yeah, then there had benches, yellow benches painted for Jews only to sit down. Nobody would go there anyhow to these parks. You know, that came slowly, slowly. Every time somebody found another way to insult us, to provocate, you know. So you're there, so you didn't go into a park. Big deal. It was more a survival. Where do we turn to? Where are we going to? My father would open up the atlas and look, where in the world could a Jew go? He had one fellow that worked for him, a salesman. He was Jewish, and he went to, oh my goodness, where is this? Is this Africa or is this in Asia? New Guinea. Where's New
New
Guinea?
Guinea's in the Pacific Islands.
Somewhere.
So that's Asia.
Yeah.
Asia.
Okay, it's Asia. And he wrote us, Mr. Weisberger, come here, and you can make some business here. He liked them very much, and he wanted to help us. Oh, that was a time when my father opened the atlas, where to go and what. And he thought with 3 young Jewish children there don't live Jewish people, with whom will he marry off his children? So that was one reason not to go to Guinea.
And then you had a neighbor from Germany who came to America who also tried, no?
With Rosenblitz.
Was it the Rosenblitz or the one who, Tycho
No.
or something?
What is that?
Tycho? The one who has the toy company?
Oh, these were friends from my mother. They lived in America and they just came to visit us. And they became very wealthy. They were from the same state from where my mother was, from Ulanov. And they were just good friends. So when they came to Germany, they visited us. There most probably would have helped us. I don't even know who at the end sent us here with David. It was my uncle, my father's brother, I think. But they might have helped too. I'm not sure, because they were very good friends. I mean, they could help and send in with David, because you needed one. You could not just come to the United States without some people vouching for you that you will not use any money help or any support from the government.
Now, what about your cousin that you were close with? The
Oh yeah, they were in Germany. They had a store in, oh my goodness, on the North Shore in Germany, completely Gentile area. So a few Jews lived there. They had a shul, and they sold like at the store with buttons and you know, supply for clothing. The mother had died. There was a young brother and a young sister my age. She was maybe a year or two older, when they came. They finally couldn't stay in that small German town. It was on the North Sea. And they came to Berlin. And in fact, at this time, they still opened a little store in the Jewish area, selling goods for clothes makers, from buttons to I really don't know what else I carried. Not really material, amounts of material. So this was my cousin. She was at this time 16 or 17. Her brother was 3 years older. And they lived together. She cooked and was in the store, and he went out selling their goods, whatever they sold there. They never came out.
That's Moniak, right?
No, Moniak is from my mother's side, from my sister, the son.
Oh, okay.
He was a furrier. They had a nice furrier business. And I remember this was also, I think, a few days before the Crystal Night. They also never came out. They got killed there. But they're curious though, he was afraid he had a lot of expensive furs in his store. And there was rumor again that they will plunder and walk into Susie's stores and take out whatever there's possible. So Susie and me, you know, children would not watch so careful like a grown-up Jew. So Susie and me, it wasn't far. At this time we had walked out from our place in Charlottenburg. My aunt lived more in the Jewish quarters in the downtown in Berlin. And my mother was afraid. My father, they had sent already to Poland to stay alone there with us 3 children. So we moved to our aunt. So I think, in fact, we never went back. That's where we left everything. Once my father came, we left right away 3 days later. What did I want to say? Yeah, so at night we went over and bought the furs out. This was Susie and me. And they most probably could sell them somewhere before.
You must have been scared, no?
Oh, not really. All the merchandise would be stolen. And we were quite in the area. We were living with an aunt. My mother didn't want to stay in Charlottenburg. It was a good Jewish area. The other was a, how would I say, a Jewish area, but the poor one. So we stayed with the relatives, my aunt. And what was the next steps there?
What happened with Tante Sabina?
Tante Sabina had moved earlier to Israel. Sabina was not at this time anymore in Germany.
What's Rita's mother's name? Isn't that Sabina?
Rita's?
Mother.
No.
That's Tante Regina?
No, Regina was my mother's name.
Oh, Tante Rachel?
Rachel was Regina. It's the same.
Whose husband was killed in the synagogue?
Oh. This was from the Adlers. Which Adler was this? You see, with names and these things.
Yeah,
I wish
that
Susie
was
would be here, she would
Rita's
remember.
father.
Yeah, Rita's father.
What happened there?
They just got in and killed him.
In the synagogue?
Yeah.
While the children were there too.
I think the children were there, and I think their mother, Tante Sabina, went to try to get a visa to the embassy, I think an American embassy, I don't know where it was. And she wasn't home at this time. Must have been the embassy, but it wasn't in Berlin. There must have been, I'm mixing some things up else.
Well, it's a long time ago.
You know that. That's why I just wanted to tell you what's
Okay.
in the paper.
Right.
So let's go back. So you left in 1939.
Huh?
You left in 1939 for Palestine.
Yeah, we were very lucky.
Who was
Half a
able?
year
Who was
before
able
the
to
war.
leave? Who from the family was able to leave?
It stayed behind. Who was able to leave? It's a good question.
Just your immediate family left.
Yeah, from us we were very lucky. In fact, Susie turned 18, and when we got to Palestine, the British didn't want to let her off. She needed a separate visa. But the Jewish community that had some saying in it to give the visas, like my father got, because he knew a lot of people to whom there were very few visas to get for Palestine. Remember, it was still British, it wasn't Jewish. What did I want to bring out?
About Susie getting a separate visa. You said the
No,
Jewish
she couldn't.
community.
She didn't get. We got it as a family. I also like to give to bigger families, so 3 children, 2 grown-ups. My grandmother couldn't come with us because she had a Scheinman name. So in the Scheinman name, she couldn't come as Weisberger. She stayed there.
She died?
Yeah, she died natural. I went to her at one time when I was in Berlin to the cemetery. We got reports that she had died and she was buried there.
How many members of the family did not make it out at that time?
What?
How many?
From our family? My cousins, the Auster family, this was an aunt and an uncle, and my very loving cousin married to a very lovely wife. This was the Auster son, Moniak Auster. Then Fischko Auster saved himself. He stayed alive. I don't know where at the end he went. And one Auster went to Italy. Somehow must have crossed some air border. I don't think on a normal visa anybody could get out. And he wasn't married, he was a single man, so no children, it was easier to leave. Now my aunt River was at this time already in Palestine. She had a tough lifetime there. They tried to open a little grocery, greenery, whatever, but really never could make a living. So over all these, not over all these years, over the few years that she was there before us, we were allowed per person from us to send, I think it was like 10 mark or what it was, that could be sent to Palestine then. So the whole family, as many people as could, would send us some money to have some extra income.
So we're talking about who else didn't survive. I just want to say Feo's and Adi's mother didn't survive because she
Yes.
sent them on kinder transport.
No, my
And the
uncle,
cousins
my
that you had-
uncle died before
Right.
he killed me.
Right.
The aunt never came
Never
out.
came out. And the cousins that you liked, the ones that you used to go to the country with,
Nah.
I remember you telling me the
What?
handsome cousin and his sister,
Yeah, they were most.
Sarah and
They left for Zagreb and were supposed to come with a Yugoslav ship, and they were waiting in Zagreb. It could have been an illegal transport. It wasn't regular. So the Jewish organization rented this boat in order to take Jewish passengers illegal. They were sometimes stopped before Palestine and would have little boats and come in at night time. And sometimes they were caught and were put there to Cyprus. But eventually released. It was a longer process. Now, they tried to get on this transport, and we knew already that they're in Zagreb.
where is
But
Saga?
no, Zagreb is Yugoslavia,
Oh, okay.
but they never got out. Somehow the Germans kept getting closer and closer in Germany. They occupied everything, so they never got out. The ships never came, and we never heard from them again. Who else died there? I have a list that I remember from people that were 21 people from my closest aunt, uncle, and cousins. So
So
I
you,
don't have their names all here, but this I did a little while ago, figure out how many did I really lose that I personally knew.
right.
And where we grew up together, because they were all from Berlin. Oh, I had two more, I don't know whether this is included. I had a rabbi, an uncle from my father's side. It's further in South Germany. Oh dear God. He got to England with a son. Left his wife, his two children behind. He thought, he'll arrange something, she should come later, but he never got out. Meanwhile, she most probably was also picked up to some camp and never survived. What was her name? Oh, yeah. Susie would remember every name. With me,
She's doing great.
with me, it's tough luck.
What was your first memories of arriving in Palestine?
Oh, fantastic. And that felt such a freedom. And it wasn't Israel. They were fighting with the Arabs. And still there was like sunshine and freedom and happiness. You got out of hell. You weren't yet in the Gan Eden, But this was amazing. To get away from Hitler, this is a special feeling. That's like a new lease on life. And there were tough times. And there were no jobs, and there was no money, and language wasn't important. And my father he was sitting at home from somebody we had bought a sewing machine. And he figured maybe he could get some kind, what is his business capacity? He had his private business, and selling electric
Appliances.
So he figured he needs a trade. So he figured maybe he can go as a tailor, whatever. So he rented the sewing machine, was sitting at home and learning the stitches on the sewing machine, and he was somehow very talented. He did fine. Then he went and looked for a job. There was one company, and leather is hard to stitch on a sewing machine. They had orders for the British government and for the British soldiers, these leather hats that they wore. It were hats from leather for soldiers. I don't know which form and don't recall now. And he could get this as homework home into his house. And how many he would sew up, he would get per piece for every head a certain little amount. But it was better than nothing. So he learned this, and in the place where he was, one day they had a holiday, I don't know what, he put a suit on, usually you go just with the pants on. In Israel, nobody was fancy. And my father put the suit on, and they admired him because he became such a good
Taylor?
what?
Taylor?
Taylor. Oh, Mr. Weisberger, in the suit, you must have done that. That is beautiful, how that fits and how that is. So he let them believe he was a real tailor. He didn't want to lose his job. But by that time, he brought some money in. I myself had to learn an occupation. So
You were only 16, right?
Tante Riva had so they also told me I should become a dressmaker. I hated dressmaking. I didn't know where to wear a thimble. I hardly knew how to thread the needle. But if you have to, you have to. And there was one, oh yeah, there was an agency, a German agency that you would go there, didn't have to pay for it, would tell people where an opening is, where somebody is looking for a worker. So I went to the department of dressmaking, whatever, and they sent me. I went to the first place. Tiny I was anyhow, like now. I was 16 at this time, a little shrimp. And I said, I am a complete dressmaker. I wouldn't get the job otherwise. I wanted a complete dressmaker. I said, fine. So I was there working for one day. They saw I don't understand from dressmaking. I don't do much. And in the evening, they paid me whatever little they had offered and told me I don't have to come the next day. So I went to 4 or 5 different places, and in everyone I learned a little bit. And then here in dressmaking, this was custom-made dressmaking. You had to fit the person, you know, you had to mark everything, you had to cut. So, and by everybody I learned something because they gave me a full garment to work on, you know, after the fitting from the women.
Plus, you said your mother in Germany sent you before you left Germany.
Oh, right.
She sent you
My
to
mother
learn.
had a dressmaker for her own clothing. And before we left, she took me, she figured out that was the idea, that maybe I could be a dressmaker in Israel and make some money. So my mother said, I will pay you and take my daughter in, not like they would in Germany, you would learn
Vacation?
yeah, for about 3 years, and they would let you make a hem for a year. And after this year, the hem, they would let you, you know, make something else, maybe a collar or what, or a sleeve to put in. So my mother said to the dressmaker, that was her personal dressmaker, I will pay you, but teach my daughter to make a full garment. Don't let her sit here, won't stay here. She can't afford to sit for a year and make hems. So she will be a lehrling, you would call it, yeah, you got to learn. And I don't know how much my mother paid, couldn't have been too much, but she showed me a few things on what to do, maybe more than just the girl.
Right, so it helped you when you got to Israel, when you went.
Yes, and I went as complete dressmaker. And I was fired a few times, but then finally I learned every time more and more, and then I was working for a very good name of dressmaker. Because in those times, women didn't buy so much ready-made. And then maybe the Jewish figures or whatever, most people still had the custom-made dress. Yeah, Jonathan sleeps a little. That's all right, he has it all on tape. He's not going to miss. He'll play the tape, and you know.
I'm fine.
What else did we want to go in the house?
Well, tell us about your living situation.
Where did you live when you first came to Palestine?
Where we lived. We rented, I think it was a one room, I don't know whether it had a kitchen or what, just for 5 of us to sleep. And this was in the Otzar Harufim. There was a building. Did you take something over to make breakfast there? Otzar Harufim was a meeting place for the doctors. Certain group of doctors had rented some rooms where they had their meetings. I don't know where they are from, the Histadrut, you know, or from a private doctors' organization. They were called the Otzar Harufim, Rufim is a doctor. And we got the possibility, thank you, we got the possibility that we could live there, but we also had to give out lunch. I think maybe my mother cooked and prepared something. Did we pay, did they pay us payments? I don't know. So there we stayed, not long, maybe 2 or 3 months.
Were there bathrooms there?
What was there?
Showers and things like that?
Yeah,
You had to-
yeah. I think so. Definitely no hot water. But we had, they had in many homes in Israel where you put the bricks in and you heat it once, you could shower cold and was that enough? Or you could shower and put bricks in, and next to the bathtub, there was a bathtub, was an oven. And the water was heated with coal bricks. Not bricks, but from coal. Was put in and just gave us. Wait a minute, we also had a time where we went, Iris, it was, where was this? In Berlin? Yeah, Once a week, the whole family went, my mother with us kids. I guess my father too. I went another time. There war eine Badeanstalt. That means you could go, there were specially built places where people just came to take a bath or a shower or whatever it was. Because Berlin is an old city and many buildings had no facilities for shower or bath. Maybe you could wash on a sink. But washing on the sink you can on a daily basis, but once a week we went to a bathhouse. You paid a certain amount and you got a cubicle in there where you went in and showered and washed and whatever for your body.
Was it like a mikveh? Like a mikveh?
No, that wasn't really Jewish. It was not a mikveh where you just
Right.
go in. That was really
A shower
wash
place.
your hair, your shower, you know, and all this. This usually I think we would go on Friday of Shabbos. But so,
So after that, after you were
no,
in
when
the
we
doctor's,
moved to the Western, we had all this.
oh, you had
Yeah,
running water.
that was in Berlin.
Oh yeah, you had a live-in maid also in Germany.
In
Until
Germany,
Hitler
you
wouldn't let
could
them-
just keep the living maid. When Hitler came in, maybe not right at the beginning,
Right.
but you know, he made us laws during
Right,
the
you
time
couldn't
he
keep
was
the
in.
living.
This would be Rassenschande, because if a Jewish woman lives in with a Gentile young girl, lives in a house, the sons or the father could misuse this girl or whatever, so nobody could hold at home somebody who sleep over. No non-Jewish person could work for you this way. We had some coming in, daytime cleaning and living in the evening.
So you lived in this doctor's meeting place for a couple of months, and then where did you live when you moved to Palestine?
Where did we move first? Oh, this was, most people just rented one room and shared the kitchen and shared the bathroom, one bathroom for 2 families or 3 families. If a family rents just one room and there are 3 rooms in the 3 or 4 rooms, it's privately owned house from some people that buy a house, but the rest of the rooms, they would live just in one room because it's always very expensive, and they would rent out the other 2 or 3 rooms with facility of using together the shower or the bathtub when it was there, and it was their income, or part of their income.
And then I guess everybody took turns using the kitchen too?
Yeah, even Susie, when she married, she had the kitchen to share with a woman, and she had one room, and Susie closed the terrace, was a room with a terrace. Israel had built a lot of terraces to their apartments. So when Gabi was born, I think she was still there. This was first for Lily, this extra terrace was closed. And Gabi there too, and then eventually they moved to Ramat Gan and found an apartment that wasn't so expensive. But you had to pay May Mafter, that means Schlüsselgeld. How would I prescribe Schlüsselgeld? If you wanted to go in,
Right.
I think it went through an agency or something. You had to pay money, or the people personally that wanted to give it to you to rent out, except the rent you first had to pay a certain amount. Not just, you wouldn't get this money back.
Right.
It was just
So you
for
lived
the
with your
privilege.
parents in Israel from you were 16 years old
Yeah,
till 26 when you married Daddy.
yeah,
So you lived for 10 years with them.
yes,
And you used to go to work and come home and give them your salary
yes.
so
and
they
I
can
kept
pay the
family.
rent and
I
the
even
food.
very often walked. I never figured that shoes all might cost a lot of money. It was quite a walk home from my work. But, and fair money was subsidized from the Jewish government. The buses was a Jewish company. But I still wanted to save, so whatever agorot this was, I don't know, 20 cents or what. I rather walked home. I went in the morning to work walking. I don't know how long the walk will take, maybe half an hour. But in half an hour, twice a day, in an hour, I think maybe it was more shoe soles and heroines, but I never figured on this.
When did you meet Joe?
When I met Jozik, I was 26. Now, when I was born, 22. Let's add to 26 years.
1948.
Well, you married him when you were 26.
Yeah,
you
when
met
I was
him before
26.
that.
I met him at 24. I was 24 years old. Okay.
So 46.
Yeah, Daddy had come out. I didn't know him while he was in the army. He was 4 years in the British Army. Did he talk about that?
Mm-mm.
No. Jozik didn't have, his father died when he was 5, and there were 7 children that his mother tried to raise, and he was really raised in an orphanage by Vienna, not in Hungary. By Vienna.
Oh, that's how he knew German.
And I don't think the mother could pay for him. It was an orphanage, so she didn't have to pay, but the Jewish organization took that over. With 16, he went of Hachshara. I think with 17 he came to Palestine. He had already 1 or 2 sisters there. They were married. Persia was there.
Anish was there.
She was working at this time for the factory, a big company.
Awesome.
Yeah, something like Osip. Right, it's a noodle factory. And what did I want to
He went with his other. You told me 2 sisters went there. He also went with his sister Anish.
No,
To
he didn't
Israel.
go with his
No?
sister. No,
Oh.
she was brought in through false papers that he was adopted by a family from Israel because there were not enough certificates given out from the British.
But he came in 1933.
Daddy? Okay.
Yeah, because we figured that out the other day in the car.
Yeah?
Because he came when he was 16, and he was born in
Yes.
16.
Uh-huh. No. He couldn't have been. What are you saying?
He came in 1933.
In 1933,
He came to Palestine in 1933.
Palestine.
He was 16 years old when he came to Palestine.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but he was probably until 18 you can be adopted. by
Right.
people.
Yeah.
He didn't get the Jewish agency wouldn't use a full certificate for a single person. So Daddy was how would you call it? Performer adopted by a family as an adopted child. He was quoted so like a child, like 16, I guess. And she also had another name at this time, just for the papers to get into Israel. Once he was in Palestine, this could be cancelled in some way. And he got his name back. Some bad papers from this, I really don't know.
Did he live with his sister? Who did he live with?
16. No, his mother was still alive. Did I say his mother had passed away?
No, but I didn't know
Passed
if she
away.
was
I
in
didn't meet her anymore when we married. But no, he lived with his mother in Bnei Barak.
Oh.
And he was the one that was hiding the bicycles before Bnei Barak that you can drive around Shabbos. You couldn't drive in Bnei Barak on Shabbat. Very religious. And there was Virgie and Anos. Was a big family. And Caroline, 3 sisters, and four brothers, Latzi, Virgie.
Dejir.
Oh, Deji was also.
Latzi, Dejir, Yakir. Not Yakir. Latzi, Dejir, Shoni.
Yeah, so you have 4.
And Gezer, who passed away in the war.
Yes, Geda passed away in Hungary.
Right.
Not he passed away, he was killed.
He was killed.
And they all got out, except one brother. And whom else did we forget? What did Jonathan ask?
Where'd you meet Daddy?
Oh, I
Right?
met Daddy on the ocean in Tel Aviv, Saturday morning. In fact, I wasn't in a bathing suit, going swimming. But there was a clubhouse on top, where you could sit, tables and chairs, and some had umbrellas. It's like a coffee house. You could order there some drink or something, and young people would sit there on the tables and go down swimming and come back up. And that was weird, that it came out of the blue. People would go swimming and fold their chairs slanted, like that statement. But you can't just walk away and go swimming for 2 hours, and nobody can use the table with the chairs there. If they want to go swimming, sit by the beach. So I came with a friend, and we took the chairs down to sit down. Nobody was there. A table of 4 or what it was. Or was a table of 2, who knows. And then these people that were originally sitting before that on the table came up from the beach. They said, that's our table, and wanted that we get out from there. And suddenly, I'm always a bashful one. I wouldn't fight her out. You were not here. You didn't have the right just to go for 2 hours swimming and use the facility here. So, Daddy appeared. What do you want from the girls? You were not here. They have the right to take the table. I don't know. You knew all the rights or didn't know the rights, made a whole big fuss, and we could sit there. And then, of course, he asked me what I'm doing in the evening. I must have told you this.
But you didn't tell the video.
Oh. And he invited me on it. But I said I wouldn't go alone on a date. I don't know him. I mean, I knew he was Jewish. So I said, if this is all right, he brings a friend along, and I bring my girlfriend along, and then we can go out. And we went to the Heny bar, what really is a nightclub, is dancing. I couldn't dance well, and Daddy's not was no dancer, and so it was a match. And it didn't take long that I fell in love with Daddy. But my parents didn't like that idea, because he was poor. They'd just come out from the army, and they'd opened a cleaning store up. And the cleaning store really existed. Even for a cleaning store, you need money for the place itself. But this used to be original a garage, and it was much cheaper. And Dergy was a caretaker of this building. So somehow he influenced somebody, and they gave it for rent. He didn't have anything to pay, just for rent. Gave him the place. So there was in the back a room that he could sleep in, and in front was a cleaning store. So that brought him in Panosa. And when we sold this, when we left, these people were forever grateful for us, because they didn't carry books. He paid a certain, what they asked from him, income tax. But we didn't. The business was much better than we thought. Nobody kept books. Daddy was just ready at this time. He had a motorcycle. And money somehow was accumulating. We didn't always keep it. There were always some friends that needed money for some purpose. And if we had something saved up, we never had a bank account. But if something was at home and some money was saved up, somebody needed it. So then he gladly gave. But he wrote it in. He had a little black book when we left. So there were quite a few names in how much he borrowed somebody. Never interested in such things. Between friends. You borrow money, but he just had it written in. And when we left, he told all these, he woke up, all these friends and acquaintances that we are leaving, and everybody paid him. There was nobody that said, I don't have the money, knowing you're leaving anyhow. Or this, you'll come back to Israel to collect. They were all good friends, and some Spruches or what, so he got all his money back. It wasn't much, but he had somehow like $4,000. Coming with $4,000 is better than coming with nothing.
Before we get to America, tell us about Independence Day in Israel.
Oh, it was fantastic. Dancing on the streets, hysteria. I mean, this is just a feeling. Outpouring, the streets were full. There was no illumination. There was nothing, everything was just what it was. But the excitement, the dancing, the horrors, the music,
What were you doing though? You told me that you had to stay on the roof?
This was my shmirah by the military.
So you were in the army too?
Yeah, I was in the army, but what they would call army chelki, half. Because I was most probably that didn't need that many women, that they had like men that really would go to the front. The women were not sent to the front unless
But were
they
they
were
able to
trained
have an
soldiers.
army while it was still a British
In the
mandate?
kibbutzim what?
Were they able to have an army while it was still Palestine?
No, they were the underground, they were the Haganah.
Right.
They were all trained. They were the lechis.
The
They were
Irgun?
what?
The Irgun?
The Irgun, no.
But how did you get into an army if it was still
No, that
Palestine?
was legal. I was legal in the army. I got a gun that I didn't know how to shoot. No explanation to it, no training. There was no time.
But when did
No,
you
I
get
don't know
that?
in which year it was. Because I know my only uniform was a khaki skirt with a khaki blouse.
Was this before you met Daddy or after?
No, before I met Daddy. And my work was to stay up. There was a building called the Beit HaDom. It was a little taller building, and the view was out to the ocean. And I had at night time to stay there on the building on the roof and look out. You didn't get binocular. How much could I see? And dark, there's the ocean.
By yourself?
But yeah, we had hours, like 4 hours and switching off. To look out if you see anybody approaching by a boat or by swimming or what, I don't know how much you could see. Okay, we had bright nights and we had moonlight shine and but there was no lights, no flashlights or anything out there. But whenever you see anything suspicious, you were supposed.
Now,
I didn't have any alarm with
Was
me.
this a volunteer? You signed up voluntarily?
I don't know, was it voluntarily or was it the women got duty chelki? What is chelki? Half duty.
Right.
Yeah. I can't remember volunteering. I'm trying to think the other from my friends. I think once I was married, I didn't have to go. I wasn't married. There was another law. I was already 26 or 25, but not married.
But see, what I don't understand, there wasn't Israeli law because it was still Palestine.
Sure, it was Palestine.
So how did they have you go? How was it like? How did they force you to be in an army when there wasn't really an army because it wasn't Israel? Yeah.
Just a minute. Which year was Chelki? I wasn't married yet. And I was, let's say, 25 years old.
So like 46, 47.
Then was our war.
40. Israel became independent in 48.
As it must be a time in between, I don't know exactly how it goes. There were always lechis there were always, even it was a British mandate, there were always Haganah there. I mean, undercover.
Right, but you weren't undercover. You were.
I don't know as I volunteered, and I volunteered. It couldn't be officially volunteering. I don't know. I came about it.
So on Israel's Independence Day, you were also looking at the river, at the ocean?
No,
at the
I wasn't
Mediterranean?
every day. I had certain days my duty. On this day, I was outside.
You were
jumping
outside.
around. Yeah,
You
because
weren't on the roof?
everybody, during the day you were sitting and nobody was doing anything else but listen to the radio from the United Nations to hear the points. And then it was voted and voted and voted and we were waiting. And when it reached the points that we will have Israel, the tumult just started. I mean, everybody was, so strained. Seeing that we should be successful and reach that goal was absolutely amazing.
So you remember celebrating? You were married by then?
No, I was still living with my parents. I didn't live alone. I just walked out from the house with friends. And what did you do? You were walking, everybody was dancing hora. You thought that dancing hora, bin ich kein langer hora dancer, you know, you have to pay, you go out.
Must have been very exciting. So,
Very exciting.
you got married though in 48 or 49? 49. You got married in 49.
No, are you sure?
Yeah, because it would have been 50 years this year, and now it's 1999. So you got married in 49.
What? Oh, my wedding.
And then you had Gideon in 50. 1950.
Wait a minute. In 49 I married, and Gideon was born,
1950.
yeah, in 50, and in 54.
Before. And then 56 you left.
Yeah, you were 2 years when we came, Gideon was 6 years, and he started public school. And I was, as you know, crying bitter tears. I went in his public school, I was 6, and I guess beginning of the school there was a meeting in the parents were invited, some speeches were given, and everybody got up and everybody was singing the anthem. And you swear to the country and to all this. And I was in a big crowd standing in there and the tears were running out. I swear to the Legion of the United States, where my own flag in Israel. I couldn't stop crying. I think months. I think it took months. I couldn't get over this. And Daddy was the same. Because when we really left, I personally just went when that certificate, that changed. Usually we would have to wait a long time for migration. The Hungarian quota was overfilled, could have taken years. And suddenly they made a new law that the husband can go on the wife's quota. And we suddenly got a letter from the British Embassy. Wasn't Israel, I'm sure, from the British Embassy.
No, it was Israel at that time.
Was?
Yeah, 1956 was Israel.
What am I so confused? We got the quota must have gone through the British still.
No, the American. You were trying to get into America.
Oh, right, to America. They changed the law, the American changed the law. That the husband can go on the wife's quota, wife can. Usually his wife went on the men's quota. And then came out a new law that the husband, we got a letter that there's a new law, and we don't have the Hungarian quota was completely closed. But we have the right to go on my quota, the German quota was completely open. And we could go in a few days. So it was a shock for me. I think it was a shock for Jurek too. Because we really didn't want to go, and on the other hand I felt that's an omen. You live in such an insecure world, you have 2 little kids, Jurek has to go constantly to the army, they called him in.
How often did you have to go?
Oh, I don't know, constantly was some emergency. He was, with a motorcycle, he used to come because his camp was very close. Even when he went, he very often came home at night. Motorcycle in and zurück, you know. How was that camp called? I forgot. Okay, whatever. No, during the army, Daddy was in really dangerous places against Rommel. That was a German high officer and a very good fighter, you know. In Africa, he was there. He was wounded at one time, was in a hospital. I have pictures from the hospital.
How was he wounded?
His leg. What else was there? Oh, they wanted to amputate his leg, and he said, no way. He will not let it, no matter what. And it took him a long time, half a year, to recuperate his leg. But he said, I'm not going to be a
So he stayed in a hospital in Palestine, or he was in Africa in a hospital?
No, he was, it must have been in Africa. And then later he was in Egypt. He was in Cairo, stationed for a while. So he was about 4 years there around.
It was a Jewish brigade from the British, right?
He,
It was a British Air Force, no?
I don't know whether it was a Jewish brigade.
Uh-huh.
Maybe some Jews were in there. Then he felt that it is not fair when he saw that other countries are fighting Hitler and he as a Jew should sit in Palestine and not do his duty, let others die, and fight. So not every Jewish boy, it was volunteer work. When Yoshi came back and said, I just, with a few friends, that they just volunteered for the British Army, they were laughing from him, crazy, he didn't have to go. There was no forcing in the mandate, the British mandate. But he felt he should do his duty. But once, it was interesting, once he had signed up on duty, they sent you to the front, and, he got a little scared. And they were sitting together with a few Hungarian friends, and they figured, as what can there go in order to stay behind the lines? That's when then he decided, he always loved food, to volunteer as a cook. There wasn't chefs then, as a cook. And they were hoping to stay behind the lines. The front has to go out much, the big Jewish fighters. Volunteer, yes, but when it came to really serious thing, so he and a few friends were thinking it over, some Hungarian, said a good place might be behind the lines, because just to supply them with food, and that wasn't true. You were in the fires because there were bombardments wherever they were, even behind the lines. At this time they had already bombs.
Is that what he did for the
planes.
Israeli army too?
What?
Was he a cook for the Israeli army too?
Oh, later automatically, yeah, since he was already, officially in the army as a cook, yeah. He liked it because he loved food, anyhow, but this brought him to the food because the other Hungarian fellows have figured being directly on the line in the fire, it's dangerous. And somebody gave some idea, why don't you volunteer for the kitchen? Kitchen service is mostly behind the lines. The soldiers with the guns, they have to send in front. And the others, they bring just in the supply. But it wasn't there. He was in camps where they were bombed, nighttime, daytime, war's war.
So you came to America by ship.
I came by ship with my family.
And who did you stay with when you first came to America?
By Santa Riva.
America.
Oh, to America. You see that?
Oh, you came by ship also to Palestine, I guess, right?
Yeah. In America. Now, Susie was here already.
So you stayed with Susie?
And no, we rented across from Susie in the Bronx there on 49th Street. Which street was it?
164th Street.
Oh, thank you. 149, right? Not 164? I don't know. Okay, whatever. It was there by the stairs and subway.
Oh, then maybe it was 151st Street. I don't know.
What is it called? The
Jerome Avenue.
Jerome Avenue, right. And it was devastating. People from Israel, friends, came visiting here, and they came visiting us, and we were living on the 4th floor walk up. So in the first apartment, one bedroom, I think. No, was it 2 bedrooms? I don't know. They felt such a rachmanis that they said this was root and layer based. Now they were always well off, so they came for a visit. Of course, the first visit was to us. We had, when we left, because I had moved in Israel, we were living in a new building, but downstairs, and we had a nice big hall, a nice kitchen, terrace to the kitchen, and one big room. Gideon slept in a crib in our room that was like a living room, but then you could open up the couch for sleeping. It was our bedroom, living room, whatever you want. But the terrace was big. You could, sit as people on the terrace. And the hall was also a table and things to eat if one wanted. And later we moved upstairs in the same building. I like the building in the area anyhow. And we had 2 bedrooms, not 2 bedrooms, it's 2 rooms. A terrace over both rooms, a beautiful big terrace. And Israel, you never let outside, there wasn't air conditioned. We slept outside, we took the beds out when there was a little breeze. And it was a very comfortable lifestyle. In the morning, I had, Chaya was her name. A Chaya, an elderly woman that would come, pick Giddy up, and she took 2 kids or 3 kids on this side, on the other side, on a little ring or string or whatever it was, and took them to the playground in the park, not far from us. There was no street crossing so much, quite, yeah. So the kids were outside. I mean, my hurried with my cooking, because all the stores, including Dennis Longby, they were closed at 12 or 1 o'clock. I think the meal had to be at 1, and then they would open from 1 to 3. I think everything was closed. And most people went, the hot meal is lunchtime in Israel. So I cooked my meal, and the babysitter came to take Gideon out and later you. And next door was a Ganenet Ruti. She had a very lovely kindergarten. She used to live in the place. Later on she moved out and kept it just as a kindergarten. So she had, since it was downstairs, a big part of the garden. She kind of like rented and put a fence around for the kids that nothing happens to the children. I must have paid for it, so she had a big outdoor ground. In summer it doesn't rain there, just in winter. And then inside she must have had 2 or 3 rooms. So her husband was a painter. And later when I came back visiting there, he had made out of the kindergarten and
The studio.
There was he used to live there, Galleria.
Mm-hmm. So you were saying that your friends, Ruth and Leo, felt sorry for you. They had Rachmanis.
Oh, that's
because you had such a nice
I
apartment.
figured they will go back and see to get money together that you should come back. Don't worry, Heny, you should come back. And we will get an apartment for you. Zurück geht a cosa. It's not so easy. They wouldn't pay the whole amount. The others didn't have the money. So why should somebody take a whole family of 4 people back because you make a mistake? They know you anything. They felt sorry for us. And they had good intentions, but that wouldn't work. And where would I go back to? The apartment I wouldn't have. The business we didn't have anymore. We said 1, so we'll say 2.
So what did Dad do for work here when he first came to the ship to make money?
No, he was already cooking there in the army, right?
Right.
Now, he started working for a Jewish nursing home in Riverdale. I think the first one was in Riverdale.
He had somebody he knew that got him the job?
Yeah, somebody he knew that got him his job, an Israeli, a woman. And then later, she had suggested, married woman, she was 2 children, but she turned out to work. She had offered Jozik to go with him in partnership and open a nursing home. I don't know, this woman had guts. We had a little money, and we could borrow some money. And she must have had some money. And I was just worried. It was the same thing. Simon wanted once to go with Daddy. And Simon had a piece of property. No, he had an old age home, nursing home, and my mother was in there. And at one time when he started and opened, he didn't have enough cash flow, or not enough money. He asked Daddy to go in as a partner, but I knew Simon was working 24 hours a day. We couldn't afford to take another employee. Usually will be there cooking. That is, you know, you make the morning shift, the lunch shift for the
But what happened?
employees,
With, right.
for the
What
things.
happened with this lady that wanted to have a nursing home?
Now, I was the same. I was against it. I said, Yojik, I don't want you anything with the started to work 24 hours a day. It is too much. I was always worried about his health. You can't take over. The kitchens are hot. You have to stay and cook there. The heavy pots. I don't know. I always saw the worst. And I said, you're not doing it. And she did very good. She started this one nursing home and she bought the second one. She was just a partner with it. It made a lot of money with it. I didn't like most probably to have debts. I'm afraid when something happened to Daddy tomorrow. I'm sitting with 2 kids. I didn't want him to work and put all this koyach in. It was a tough work. It's not just that he hires people. And the beginning you have to save, not to hire and work like a horse in order to get out, you know. Simon worked very hard the first years, 24 hours a day. I don't know when he slept. So at one time Simon offered and I didn't want, and
Right.
then she
She
offered
offered.
and I didn't want. I was always worried. She shouldn't overwork.
Now, what happened? What kind of work did you do when you first came here?
What did I do? Yeah, I think we can stop this.
Well, I want to know what kind of work you did. Oh, your egg!
Oh my
Ay.
goodness.
Well, we got
Yeah,
pretty
close.
far. We can continue
Oh, no,
later.
that was earlier.